Hi, my name is George, and I just want to spend some time with you talking about weight loss. I've been working with people on personal matters now for at least 2 decades, and I've lost count of the number of times that weight loss and body image actually comes up. As a result of that, I've now worked with people many times on weight loss. What I want to discuss here is an accumulation of some of that information and how some of the techniques that have been developed over the past 2 decades really work. In fact, to this day, I still find it exciting and satisfying to hear about how someone has changed. My most emotional experiences have come from people's success stories. This whole approach we now have to weight loss has been designed around that success. It's been specifically designed so that people can successfully lose weight. And so they don't need to waste money anymore. You don't need to waste money on diet pills, fad diets, diet clubs, not to mention all the stress and disappointment that this brings with it. I've heard many stories about the drama we have with the scales. How many of us look at the scales? We stand on them. We look at the weight. We lean forward, we lean backwards. Can we lose that little bit, that 1 pound, that half a pound? What about then if we think we haven't lost it? Maybe we stand on again. Best of 3, that usually works. And if that fails, we can always then absolutely strip down. It's this drama that unfolds, and it causes us stress and a disappointment. The stories I've heard about the kinds of things that people have said to people, partners, parents. I've heard stories like where it's been people have actually said to people, well, they won't want to see you, will they? They'll want to look at somebody who's slim and attractive. Parents who've said things like, oh, it's such a shame the way you look now because you have such a pretty face. And what I heard just last week was, well, if you could see yourself in those trousers, you just wouldn't go out, would you? All of this has a profound effect on how we feel about ourselves. And for many, it has devastating effects. At best, it makes us feel bad about ourselves. So what we've put together here is a package which is designed to enable people to understand how we relate to our body. And it helps people become the ideal you. It makes us comfortable with who we are. The core of it is around being able to change the way you feel about food, our relationship with food. Now, over the years, I've seen many people from all different backgrounds, and I absolutely know that this process works for all of us, regardless of our background, age, gender, how many diets we've been on in the past. Whatever the reason we have for wanting to lose weight, this process works. I know for many people, the metaphor they think of about losing weight is that it's a battle. It's a battle where they've made advances and they've retreated. Diets have worked for a short period, maybe 6 months, but then bit by bit, slowly, the weight creeps back. But it doesn't just creep back, it actually increases, and so the battle starts again. Some people have been battling and have been dieting for most of their lives. And for many people, that could be 40 or 50 years spent in this state of worrying, stress, disappointment, playing out the drama with food, with the scales. I've had people express disgust, loathing, and even hatred towards their body. They've described themselves as hopeless, unattractive, and worthless. Now, this is deeply distressing to me. This really shouldn't be happening. And the thing is, it's all completely unnecessary. We all have the power and capability to change how we look, think, and feel about ourselves. And it's our right to feel good about ourselves. What we have here then is what I refer to as a spectrum of wonderful ideas. As I said, I've been working at this for at least 2 decades. So that's 2 decades of personal experience. But what's more exciting than that is that there's also been a massive research carried out in a whole range of areas. And over the past 5 years in particular, what we've learned about how the brain operates and how the brain controls all different aspects of our body, including our weight, has really stimulated a large chunk of this approach. Many people I've worked with have always been skeptical, and of course they're programmed into the ideas that it has to be about dieting. And expect you can be that too. But let me assure you, this approach works. Yesterday afternoon, we had somebody write a recommendation that said within the first 2 weeks, she'd actually lost half a stone, but she hadn't really been making that much effort, that huge effort to do so. So I hear you ask, what does make this work then? What makes it work is applying what we've learned, is applying an understanding of the science, an understanding of human nature. Understanding how we work can then actually make us make the changes that we need to. But that may sound really complex. So what we've done here is actually put things into a straightforward process and a strategy that, if followed, works. Now, if we look in the dictionary at the word diet, we see things like cut down, starve yourself, watch what you eat, slim, watch your waistline, fast. This is part of the spectrum of ideas. It may not be at the wonderful side of the ideas, but it's definitely there. If you think about these words, cut down, starve yourself, watch what you eat, slim, fast. These are not strategies that are designed with the human system in mind. And because of this, they may work short time. But for most of us, diets don't work. And one of the big, wonderful ideas is that actually to lose weight is a natural aspect of what we do. Therefore, what we do is we understand our nature. By understanding that, we work with ourselves, not against ourselves. If we start starving ourselves, what kind of message do you think that sends to the mind? It sends, we're in trouble, something's going on. If we fast, there's no food around. We need to find food. We need to go, next time we find it, we need to hoard it. This becomes something that's really important. Our focus is all on food. This is not a wonderful idea. A better idea is to do it naturally. So let me just say again, diets don't work. So this approach is not about dieting. It's also not witchcraft. It's practical. It works for us all. For many years, I've seen people who start unhappy with their life. They can be miserable, frustrated. But what gives me a huge sense of satisfaction is that they leave the sessions with a sense of purpose, determination, and a sense of freedom. That goes hand in hand with being happy about your body image, and they do lose weight. So this is not witchcraft. This is about building a new you. It's about building the you that you're happy with. The you who is happy with their body shape. As people, we all have aspirations and anxieties. If you've dieted at all, or if you really want to lose weight, then you have an aspiration. However, that's also balanced by anxieties. And these can take all different kinds of forms. A lot of the anxieties actually lead to what's known as resistance to change, resistance to actually losing the weight. We go into this much more when we're working with people. But if we think about it, anxieties can be based around insecurity. being powerless, dreading change. Betrayal becomes a big one. Exhaustion, just had enough. Defeat, oh, it's happened to me so many times, I can't face another one. And of course injustice. It's just not right. How can these people eat what they like and look like they look? It's just not fair. If all these anxieties outweigh the aspirations, it actually stops us moving forward. It takes away our motivation. It takes away the power to change. So we have to recognize this balance and think, whereabouts are you? If your anxieties outweigh your aspirations, then it's going to be an uphill struggle to reach your aspirations. However, if you've got your aspirations and you've got the power of your aspirations and they outweigh the anxieties, it's a downhill ride. So let's think about this. What are your aspirations? But also recognize, what are your anxieties? Which one is the more powerful? Is it a ride downhill for you or an uphill struggle? Which metaphor would you use? I know for many of the people I've worked with, it's about battles, and they actually use the term, it's an uphill struggle. I feel like I'm dragging weights behind me. I have things sitting on my shoulders. I'm laden down by things. So spend some time, think about it. Some of the changes to get rid of the anxieties need to occur. But where do they occur? Well, the answer to where they occur is looking at you now. They occur where we are. And where are we? We're in our brain, we're in our mind. These changes need to take place in our thoughts. Now, the absolutely brilliant thing about this, of course, is we can actually control our thoughts. With a bit of effort and a bit of work, we can actually use this to make the changes we need to do. As I said earlier, the amount of research over the past 20 years into how the brain works and how we work has been phenomenal. Neuroscience over the past 5 years has given us huge amounts of information and data. And this is some of what we use and we learn to use and have translated into a straightforward process. So by leveraging what we know, we can make these changes. We give ourselves the power to make the changes we need to. This is how we actually think thin. We actually think ourselves into losing weight. And of course, this creates a whole different set of circumstances and moves us away from the diet. It moves us away from starving, from fasting. It moves us away from all the stress and disappointment that we may well have had in the past. Key to much of what we're talking about is the relationship we have with food. We develop habits, beliefs and attitudes towards food. This is our relationship with food. We think about a typical day. Several times a day, most of us stop what we're doing and we go on the hunt for food. At this time, a small-scale drama unfolds in our brain. Thoughts and emotions are set into actions. Chemicals whir, electrical activity sparks away. The result of this determines what we eat, how much we eat. Are we being driven by a perspective of hunger? Or are we just really looking to change the way we feel, e.g. comfort eating? Or are we really responding to physical hunger? Now, like any drama, there's a playwright, a director and an actor. The decisions we have is, which one are we? Are we in control? Or are we being directed? Are we just acting out the part? So many of us just eat automatically. It's just like when you're driving to work. You know you've done it, but you can't really remember it. For some of us, the relationship we have with food is just like that. After the drama, the whir of the chemicals, the desire, it just becomes automatic. Clearly then, if our eating is just automatic, this is our mindset, this is our brain at work. And of course, as many of you know, the mind and the body are linked together. But so is our natural system. The system that dictates what we do with what we put in our mouths. It's natural, but it's also linked to how we think about it. And it's an understanding of how the mind affects our body and vice versa that really is at the core of this. And when we understand it, we know where to make the changes, when to make the changes, and how to make the changes that really matter. And because we're working with the natural system, it's natural. It doesn't require this dieting, this starving, this fad diet. These are not natural things. We're using our system. The food we intake becomes controlled. So the food we take into ourselves is controlled. Now that may be consciously or subconsciously. So briefly, let's just look at this balance between control and regulated. What do we actually control? Well, we absolutely control our psychology, how we perceive things. Of course, that then leads to having a control of what chemicals and electrical activity take place. We control our brain, the chemical and electrical factory. But it also overlaps. So our body and our biology is also regulated. So of course, if we take a lot of food in, our body will regulate it and use it and will store it as fat. It will regulate our chemicals and the way we think. So these processes are interlinked. And what I've really learned over the past 20 years is how we make this understandable and how we actually work with this system. And this is the key bit. By understanding these processes and understanding how we can work with it, yes, we can control our perception. We can control our chemical and electrical factory, which in turn means we can actually regulate our body weight. Hence, if we really want to, we can lose weight, and it's on the natural side. Okay, so I hear you say, so what? How does this all fit together? Well, every single one of us operates the same way. We all have very similar chemicals. We all have similar electrical activity that goes on. What's different is our experiences and our life experiences that have gone on. If you look on screen, what happens is that we have an event take place, and instantly what that event does is it triggers off filters in our heads, and we delete and we distort and we generalize things. And this becomes really key. And when we're working with people, we're really understanding how this works. And by understanding how it works, we can get to the bits that matter. And of course, as I've said earlier, so much of this comes from internal dialogue. It comes from the memories we've got. It comes from decisions we've made. And of course, the habits that we actually all have. Some of them good, some of them bad. But remember, as I said before, we can change them all. Our values and beliefs, our attitudes, all of these are important parts of us. By understanding it, we can get to the roots. And we know that these are not just mere thoughts, because the thoughts are in our mind, but the mind is linked to the body, and this is where the changes take place. So any kind of internal representations we have, if we think about this, actually leads to the whirring of the chemicals, the sparking of the electrical activity. And it's these things that really matter, because those affect how we feel. They affect what we weigh. They affect every aspect of us. As you can see from this diagram, they affect how we hold ourselves. Not only the body language, but our body image. But of course, all of this leads ultimately to our eating behaviour. And that's what we're really after. If we change that behaviour, we change how we feel about ourselves, and we change our weight. This has just been a brief look at this, but to me this is really exciting, and to be able to get the feedback from people who for years and years have been trying different things, have been starving themselves, have been taking pills and have had adverse reactions, have felt really stressed, have felt disappointed because they put the weight back on. For me, as I said earlier, this is really emotional when you actually see the success that people witness through this system. This now brings us to something that is absolutely key, and that's the power of imagination over will. Think about this for a second. We all have this magnificent power of the imagination, and that is so powerful. It's much more powerful than the will. If you think about this, think about your heart rate, think about your pulse. How much does it take to will them to change? But however, what about imagination? If we suddenly start imagining somebody creeping up behind us, it's at night, there's somebody behind a creaking door, what starts to happen to your body? Does your pulse change then? Does your heart rate change? For most of us, it does. And this shows us the power of imagination over will. And that's actually key. If we can get to our imagination, we can actually take control. We can motivate ourselves, and we can get ready to take the action that's actually required. This is about taking the action, making it so. The power to make the changes we desire is in our hands. The most powerful and succinct change model I have ever come across consists of 3 stages. First one, see it as it is. And this is all about recognizing where we are, what steps we're going to need to take, being true to ourselves. For me, and particularly for weight loss, the big thing here is that diets don't work. We have to see it as it is. And then, as we've said, we have to use our imagination. We then have to see it better than it is. And finally, we make it so. What's exciting for me is making it so for people. I know this works. I've seen the approach work. As I've said before, I've seen people arrive miserable, and after the sessions they've gone away with this sense of freedom, proudness, and most of all, sense of self-confidence. And for some people, this is what weight loss does for them. So let's make it so. Make it so for you now. This is about taking control, about valuing yourself, but taking the actions that are required to make it so for you now. We want to work with you. Together, I know we can lose weight. If you look below, you'll see a bit more information. Click on the buttons now. Engage with us. Book the sessions and see how this really can make a difference to you and your life.